Hi everyone, and welcome back to another StART program where stories and art collide. I'm Miss Gail. I'm with Red Bank Public Library, and I'm really happy that you're here today. Without further ado, let's get started. What inspired me today was the fabulous book I found on our shelf in the kids department called Stitch and String Lab. Lots of art projects in it, and the one we're going to focus on is tree weaving. You really don't need much supplies, but the standards. So if you can grab your scissors and pencils, and you might need a ruler, but also for this particular craft you will need yarn and paint. You can either use acrylic or watercolors. Scissors, as I said, buttons are optional, but make sure you grab some paper towels and some water. Draw a line approximately down the center of the paper plate. This will be the division between the land and the sky. Don't make a straight line. You want to create interest by making a little bit of a wiggle to it. If you like to create a bit of perspective when you're painting the sky and the land, go lighter in the color as you go towards the horizon line. This will help create a little bit of depth in your picture. I used acrylic paint to add some clouds into the sky. I made the tops nice and puffy and the bottoms a little bit straighter. For the flowers, I used the end of my paintbrush. Dipping it into a puddle of white paint, I made 5 little petals and then added a dot of yellow into the centers. At the top of the plate, draw 8 lines about 1 inch apart to indicate the top of the tree. At the bottom of the plate, you'll draw 2 lines about a ½ inch apart to indicate the trunk. After doing that, you're going to grab your scissors and cut the lines about 1 inch in. After cutting the drawn lines, you're going to grab some brown yarn for the trunk of the tree, tape down a small tail on the back of the plate, and begin the process of creating the loom. Bring the yarn up to the top of the loom and go into the first notch on the left. Slide the yarn from the back to the front and into the notch beside the one just entered. Bring the yarn to the bottom of the plate and into the notch to the right of the first notch. Continue on until you've worked your way across the plate. Cut the end of the brown yarn, leaving a tail of about 24 inches to create the trunk of the tree. Wrap around and around until you've reached the desired height of a trunk. Pull tightly and knot the yarn to one of the tree branches. Now it's time to weave. Beginning at the bottom of the tree, weave in an over and under pattern through the tree branches. I used a very thin yarn and it took a lot of times back and forth. But if you use a much thicker, bulkier yarn, it may be a little easier for little hands and will create a totally different looking tree. If you're not able to finish your tree with the ball of yarn you began with, you can always add more. Just leave a little tail when you start the new ball of yarn, and as you work your way up the tree, you can slowly incorporate that tail into the tree weaving process. I use the chopstick to help keep the yarn close together. When you have made the tree as tall as you'd like, just tie off the piece of yarn to one of the tree branches. And now you can think about adding some buttons. You can either glue the buttons on or sew them on. Either way, it will be a great project to complete. Thanks so much for joining me. Keep on reading, and we'll see you soon.